Welcome back, listeners, to a new episode of The New Standard. And you're checking out the program on September 14th, 2020. And as always, I have my partner in crime to my left, Neil Coulong. What's up, Neil?
That's a good word, Lance. Today's a good day. Today's a good day. The Steelers are 1-0. We are at hump day. It is time to put the bizarre win, but the win nonetheless, over the Bengals to rest. We, as Belichick would say, are on to New England.
Yes, and we are on to New England, and we have a special guest coming on to break down that game for us from Patriots Wire. I want to thank Patriots Wire for coming on. Um, Make sure you guys stick around for that. As always, if you want to join the experience on YouTube, go to YouTube, do a search for the New Standard and Lance Williams or Neil Coulong. In terms of the podcast way, you can go to any of your podcast feed or do a search for the New Standard and Lance Williams, Steelers, or Neil Coulong, some combination of those, and you will pick up the podcast. Please subscribe to the pod. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And Neil, before we hop into our interview and a breakdown of the game coming up this week against the New England Patriots, the home opener, I want to just start it off by saying, what's up? WATT''S. What's up? What's going on with TJ Watt? The injury, I think the pec is torn. Maybe it's not. 6, 7, 8 different opinions. What's going on, first of all, with the status of the injury? I don't know if anything's been clarified. Um, and more so, what's the impact of the loss of TJ Watt? Because presumably, whether he's going to be out for the year, he's going to be out for the next several weeks for sure. And so, what's the injury update? And what's your thought in terms of the status, in terms of the impact of the loss of TJ Watt over the next several weeks?
Well, the brass tacks is TJ Watt is going to miss, they are suspecting, about 6 weeks. I would think that means they're going to put him on injured reserve and call somebody up, whoever that might be. They might go a bunch of different directions with that. It's kind of hard to tell where they are as far as their practice squad, guys that are signed. They just signed Ryan Anderson, formerly of the Washington Commanders, excuse me, yesterday, to their practice squad. He can be elevated. Maybe that's what they have in mind. We'll find out, but they don't transactionally need to make the move on Watt right away, and I assume that they won't. They'll let, as Mike would say, practice participation be their guide. They'll see what they're going to do, but considering players who make the 53-man roster, who are put on injured reserve after that, can come back after 4 weeks instead of 6. They're going to presumably keep him on for at least 4 weeks. They say it's a 6-week injury. Does he come back from that right away? I don't know. We'll find out. But the interesting part of this, what's important to know is the injury itself. You can tear you can tear a muscle, and the severity of it kind of depends on where it is. In the case of a pec injury, which Lance, you heard me say this on Sunday after the game, the bad one is when the tendon itself pulls away from the bone. That requires surgery, and it's something. The recovery of that surgery is what takes a while for a player to come back. There's range of motion issues, obviously strength issues, pain tolerance, and swelling that would limit a player quite a bit. In this case, the Steelers are very fortunate, as is TJ Watt. He did not tear the tendon off the bone. It's just severe enough that those lack of strength and limited range of motion issues are not going to be as severe as long term. It is going to take him a little bit to be able to come back, though. So it sounds like he's going to miss, by the team's estimation, about 6 games. Not a good thing for the Steelers, plain and simple. Not a good thing. We saw great things out of AFC Defensive Player of the Week, Minkah Fitzpatrick, the first time he's won that award. We saw great things out of Cam Hayward, which we usually do. We saw great things out of Alex Highsmith. Might have been his best game as a pro on Sunday. TJ Watt did not receive the kind of accolades that his performance earned, because he usually plays like that. And losing a player like that, you don't replace it. It's impossible to replace the impact that TJ Watt brings on a play-to-play, game-to-game basis. They are going to take a step backwards because of that. There's no way around it. We can talk as much as we like about Jameer Jones, about Malik Reed, a proven veteran in the league. They're not TJ Watt. Put them together, they're not TJ Watt. So there's a loss coming. We'll see what they do schematically to avoid it. I don't think there's a whole lot they can do. We're going to see those guys probably rotate a bit, get as much action in as they can, try to get as much as you can out of the other stars that are on the defense. But TJ Watt's a defensive player of the year, and he played like it in week one he didn't even play the full game. And he had a player of the week caliber performance. So it's something they're going to have to figure out how to get around. I don't think they can just do it. They're going to have to find a different way to create the type of results that we saw on Sunday.
Well, now when you say create a different way, that's what I wanted to tap into next in terms of this injury. And I think one thing that's not being mentioned is even if he does come back, you're talking about a Peck and you're talking about a pass rusher. He's not going to be right for the rest of the year. You're not going to get premium level TJ Watt now. I don't know what 85% of TJ looks like or 80%, but you're not going to probably get the TJ Watt that you got in the first game. That's going to be a lingering injury. It's going to be something that he deals with for the rest of the year. And I'm not a doctor, but I know that they have to be concerned of whether, possibly he could completely tear it. I mean, he's just playing with an injury. Guys play banged up all the time, and we don't necessarily know the severity of everybody's injury and what they're dealing with on a game-to-game basis. But it can't be good that your defensive player is playing with a pec issue, for 12 games. So it seems like whatever they get from TJ, it's going to be a bonus this year. And we saw in the first game, they need to play at an optimum level on a defensive end to be competitive in games. When you were talking about what they might do differently, is it a scheme change? Is it substitution changes? Is it a philosophical change in terms of how they try to get pressure? What do you think it looks like? Does it look that much differently schematically or approach-wise in trying to deal with this TJ Watt injury?
To speak of it schematically, I think is a little bit too tough for where we're sitting right now. I think you're going to get a lot of people that want to overdo the situation. You can't change your defense in going into week two. It's way too late to do that. I don't know how much it really matters because that's what their defense is predicated upon. Your outside linebackers do a certain thing. I'm not saying that is static, as in it's set in stone. They will only do this, but you're not going to not play with another outside linebacker. I mean, you got to get guys in there to do at least the functions of what Watt does in those positions. So I would think maybe they're going to rotate. We saw Reed and Jones rotate a bit at that spot. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more of that. Whether it's acclimating both. Let's keep in mind, too, I think this is what's really interesting, and I wanted to say this earlier. We're looking at two replacement players for the Steelers who neither of them were in camp with the team, and they were added after cuts, right? Reed was added before cuts came, but he was acquired via trade, and Jones replaced Derek Tuska, who made the team, and they cut him. So and Jones, yes, he was in camp with the team last season, but you've got to worry about that from just a development perspective. These are two players that were not with you in camp. They were not practicing. How much of the defense can they run right now? So I would say more than anything, what to look at is going to be the rotation, how much each of them are playing. You're going to use Highsmith in the spot that he's in for obvious reasons. Whether Anderson gets worked into this or not, I don't know. Certainly not right away. They're going to have to do different things with each of them based on who can do what. And that's a matter of coaching. That's a matter of awareness, as far as understanding and knowing their roster. Schematically, though, I don't think we're going to see much difference. I bet if I was to make a guess, I guess I should say not bet, but we'll see each of them there'll be a pattern to the downs that they're playing, the situations that they're playing in. Those are the ones that right away in this week, they're going to be prepared for. But keep in mind, it's important now, Lance, because as you know, after week 2, you've got a quick turn time. You're playing at Cleveland in week 3 on Thursday night. So this is 2 games in 5 days for 2 players that don't know your team particularly well. They're in a crash course right now. There's a lot that they're going to have to pick up on. I don't know how much we can expect from each of them, but whatever development and improvement they can make just from an internal perspective is going to be much needed for the Steelers.
I think not as equally important, and you made a great point because I was going to ask about who do you think is going to be the starter, but I don't know if it matters in this case. It's 1 plus 1 does not equal 2 in this case. It doesn't matter who's starting, who's the backup. The issue is you don't have TJ Watt on the field, and you're not going to get anywhere near the same level of production. So you could put anyone out there in terms of the starter. It's just going to be a collection of guys. Can you get anywhere close to the production? TJ takes a lot of air out the room, but there was another significant injury in the game as well. There was the injury to Najee Harris. What's your thoughts on that injury? What's the status of the injury? Is he slated to play this weekend?
He is. He's good to go. He said he's good to go. The initial reports we heard from the team were backed up by Mike Tomlin yesterday when he spoke to the media. It's not significant. It's going to be a bump and bruise type of injury that you get throughout the season. The fact that it was on the Lisfranc sprained area that Harris apparently had throughout training camp was an initial concern, and I think that was Harris's reaction on the field. He made it look like it could have been something significant, and they didn't put him back in there. Not a good thing. I think they definitely wanted to check him out, but he says he's good to go. We'll see. I mean, really more the question is, are they able to put Harris in a position where he's not dodging defenders 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage like he was pretty much literally the entire game. I mean, that's one of the worst rushing performances we've seen from the Steelers. And to highlight the comment that just went away, I don't feel, and I'm sure I'm going to get all kinds of heat for this, but I don't feel that Najee Harris ran particularly well in this game. Yes, there are people he has to avoid probably a lot earlier than he would like to, but the reality is if all you need to do is clear a gigantic hole in the middle of the field, it wouldn't be that hard to be a running back in the NFL. You have to make guys miss. You have to go to the right spots, and you have to be efficient with your movement. I did not feel Najee Harris was great in that regard against Cincinnati. I think he left yards on the field. A lot of the same stuff that we saw from him last year. It's film work. It's he's smart. He works hard. He'll get there. But I feel like his margin of error is so much lower than probably his peers around the league are, just because he's not getting great opportunities to make plays. He's got to maximize what he gets on each play. And a lot of times he didn't find a spot he could have cut to. He wasn't able to roll forward because he didn't go to the right place. That's part of being a running back. It's not just being fast and running through a wide open hole. It doesn't, take more than a track star to do that. A runner is instinctive. They have vision, which is what was pointed out in the comment. I don't feel Najee Harris's vision was particularly outstanding in this game. I think he left stuff on the field, and I think they're going to go over that with him, and you hope that it can improve. With the foot injury as well, maybe that limits his speed a little bit, but it doesn't limit his eyesight. So he's, especially against what's typically a very good defensive team out of the Patriots, he's going to have to be sharper than he was for the offense to pick up. He's got a role in all this as well.
When you were saying that and you said track, I was thinking, I don't know who does the song, but I was thinking of the song, She's a Runner, She's a Track Star. I'm just thinking of that song when you said that. But let me ask one.
Dree Archer. I think that's where it came from. Somebody posted a clip of Dree Archer that did exactly that. In college, out of a pistol, he took a handoff through a fairly open lane, and the dude just took off because he went straight. He didn't have to make anybody miss. Dree Archer, for comparison's sake, since this came up, Dree Archer had probably the worst vision of an NFL running back I've ever seen. He couldn't see anything. And on top of that, well, how about this? If he saw anything, it was the defending players. And if they came toward him, he fell down or he ran horizontally. He was the least efficient runner in Steelers history. And there's a reason he was out of the league almost as quickly as he came into it. He has zero offensive utility because he was just I don't want to go as far as to say he was afraid of getting hit. I mean, he's half the size of some of those guys. You take hits like that, you're going to fumble. You don't want to do that. But at the same time, he didn't compete. I mean, it just, he was, fortunately for the Steelers, whether or not Najee Harris is on the field, Dree Archer is not going to be on the field. So that in itself, sometimes that you just gotta hope for gratitude, Lance. That's it.
And before we bring Jordy into the show to break down this Patriot game, I want to ask you really quickly, since we're talking about Najee, can you get can you start seeing ghosts? There's a there we talk about at the running back position, excuse me, at the quarterback position where you know the not the David Carr stuff where you get hit so much you just start seeing ghosts, or we talk about when um in the Jets game. I'm forgetting the name of the USC quarterback when he famously said on the sidelines going
Darnold.
up against the Patriots, Sam Darnold, I'm
Darnold.
seeing ghosts. I'm seeing shadows out here. Can you get to a point where running with an inconsistent offensive line where you're getting hit very soon after the handoff, after the mesh point starts to affect how you play, your vision, what you're seeing? Can you subconsciously start running a different way in anticipation of getting hit instead of actually running more naturally and just running through the flow of the play and being instinctive?
Yeah, I give you most of Najee Harris's career so far. There was a play, they got him outside and he had room. There wasn't anybody there, and he stutter stepped. I unfortunately don't have him in front of me, but I'll show you that. That's the exact play I was talking about when he left yards on the field. I'm not saying he could have broken it 60 yards. I'm saying that he had 5, 6, 7 yards off the edge. And because he stopped and he hesitated, because he probably just so used to having to do that, he slowed down and they caught up to him. And I think he only gained 3 or something like that. The difference between a great running back and an average one, on one hand, is the ability to break something 50 yards. Okay. Najee Harris was not great in that regard anyway. I don't know how often that's going to happen. I'm not saying it's a necessity, but if you're not able to do that, you've got to be the guy that can make 5 out of 2. You only get 2 yards of space. You're smart and sharp
Yeah.
enough to be able to get ahead to get 5 yards. Plays like that take it away from you. When I say efficiency of motion, that's what I mean. You've got to be moving forward. Your body has to be in rhythm. And if you're stopping to juke what isn't there, you're doing the opposite of that. You're giving up yards. You're leaving yards on the field. And Harris has a lot of those carries. He's not as nearly as good as fans think that he is. I'm not saying that he's bad. There are a lot of runners that will do that, but he's got to get confident in going forward and not having to make guys miss all the time. That's on him. Certainly it's on the offensive line, but the running back has a responsibility for that. You can't say, well, they never blocked for me, that's why I just left 5 yards on the field. That kind of stuff. Excuse me. That kind of stuff ends drives, it forces punts, and ultimately it takes points off the board.
That's a great point you made. Let's bring in Jordy. Welcome to the show, Jordy. How are you this morning?
Man, there's a hint of fall in the air, and Taco Bell has Mexican pizza back on the menu. I'm doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
Well, we're going to Taco Bell in half an hour. I know that.
Man, for breakfast, man, it's a good breakfast.
I'll take whatever they're giving me.
All 3 of us are Taco Bell fans. I'm a fan of the double-decker taco. Unfortunately, they do not anymore.
We'll do this again. I'll rant for 20 minutes on how pissed off I am about that. I want my double-decker tacos back. I try to make them myself. I can't.
Oh.
It just doesn't work. It's not the same. I don't know. Why did they get rid of them? Why? Because of the stupid gordita? No, nobody wants that.
Well, let's dive back into this game. Welcome to the show, Jordy. Thank you for hopping on. I want to jump into, I'll get it started off. I want to jump into looking at the Steelers, or excuse me, the Patriots offense against the Steelers defense. I looked at this Patriots offense. I looked at some of the games last year. I looked at the first game particularly. I think the one thing that jumps out when you look at the Patriots is, they look like straight up and down, no special effects. It looks like there's nothing dynamic, nothing that really strikes fear into you from the perspective of a defense or a defensive coordinator or an approach. In terms of generating explosive plays and just in general, What do you think the overall approach would be for the Steelers, or should be for the Steelers, when they look at this team? Is it as simple as we're going to put an extra guy in the box, we're going to play a lot of cover 2, cover 4, make you earn it on the ground, see what we do? What do you think the overall approach will be from the Steelers going up against this Patriot offense?
I mean, if I'm the Steelers, obviously I'm wanting to put a lot of significant pressure on Mac Jones. Like, I'm looking to get after him, and I'm looking to make him make tough throws, tight window throws. There's a lot of instances against that Dolphins team where he was sort of forcing some throws, and he had guys come open underneath. Patriots, like you just said, there's no dynamic playmaker. The only dynamic playmaker that they have is Kendrick Bourne, and he's in Matt Patricia's doghouse, reportedly. So, I'm looking to make Mac Jones kind of force some passes. I look at that Cincinnati Bengals game, and the Steelers, they're causing all sorts of havoc with turnovers galore in that game. And then the Patriots against the Dolphins, they turned the ball over 3 times. I saw the little write down here that says, can the Steelers beat the Patriot way? Well, I think the Patriot way went with Tom Brady to Tampa Bay. And the Patriots they're turning the ball over. It's just not looking good right now. So, yeah, pressure on Mac Jones. Hope you can make turnovers, make a mess of a game. It should be mostly a defensive contest.
Where is Mac Jones in all of this? What's the latest status of him? And if he is unable to go, what do you think about Brian Hoyer's chances?
So Mac Jones right now, he's dealing with back spasms, and as far as I know, he's going to try to play. Said it could be a game time decision type of thing. Brian Hoyer's been around for a long time. He has a lot of experience in the offense. And he's honestly, maybe he should be the offensive coordinator because he's been in Mac's ear a lot. So, the Patriots are definitely covered there with a backup. I don't see this game being real high scoring anyways. It's going to be mostly a defensive game. It's going to come down to a lot of turnovers. So, yeah, I could see Brian Hoyer coming in and holding his own.
Looking at this Patriot offense, it's really weird because I get the sense that they want to run the football, that's what they want to hang their hat on. But we've seen inconsistent line play as well as pass protection. I mean, when we talk about the Patriot way, and you talk about the Patriot way leaving with Tom Brady, did it also leave with Dante Scarnecchia? Is the loss of Dante Scarnecchia really what's affecting this offense and the approach and the different things that they want to do in terms of an offense?
I think Scar's an amazing coach, and obviously they would be better with him there. But, the guy's had so many great years in the NFL, he deserves to kind of go off and enjoy his retirement. We can't keep leaning on Dante Scarnecchia to keep coming back and saving this team. But, yeah, I mean, obviously they have issues up front, and a lot of it's to do with Josh McDaniels leaving as well. You lose your offensive coordinator, that causes a lot of issues, especially in Mac Jones' second year. That's his first NFL head coach when he first came in. So, a lot of that's to do with that. And then also, too, guys have to play better. Like Trent Brown, he had an incredibly rough game against the Miami Dolphins. Guys like him, especially at that left tackle position, he has to step up, especially against a Steelers defense that could have Mac Jones doing snow angels in the dirt.
I was actually going to ask about Scarnecchia, and the parallel to it is interesting because the Steelers had the same problem when Mike Munchak left, wanted to be closer to family, which was in Denver, and he's still with Denver right now. But the Steelers have had 4 offensive line coaches since then. They've turned them over each year, and they're on iteration number 4 right now, and it doesn't look good. We might be on 5 next year at this time. I don't know. That's something I think New England has to kind of look at long term. I think they're going to this just goes to show overall the value of an offensive line, and it's not just in the players. You can't just draft 5 offensive linemen from the first round. It doesn't work that way. You need to have kind of a foundational guy, and you need to have a bunch of key pieces that are brought in. And it seemed like the Patriots in their heyday were always able to get the most out of the guys that they had, but they invested in marquee blue chip kinds of guys. What do you see as far as the nature of their offense, what they're trying to do with Mac Jones? And it really seems to be bulk up big, attack the seams with tight ends and multi-use running backs, kind of ignore the receiver position. What do you think they're trying to accomplish offensively beyond the simple simple goal of just scoring points? What are they looking to do with the ball when they have it?
And I think you just touched on a great point. Obviously they're looking to bulk up big and they're looking to run the football. They're wanting to be more of a power running football team and, utilize some play action passes and, just kind of utilize the short throws with the tight ends and everything. And obviously, me pointing out play action passes, they only did that twice against the Miami Dolphins, which is incredible. But yeah, they're wanting to really establish the run and get that going. And for someone like Mac Jones that comes from that Alabama offense, he has guys like Jalen Waddle on one side and Devontae Smith on the other side. He's kind of wanting to make those chunk plays. And you could see it in the game against the Dolphins with him kind of forcing some plays downfield that just, weren't there. And guys are in one-on-one coverage and they can't win. But I have an issue with the Patriots kind of ignoring the wide receiver position because you need some of those guys. You're not going anywhere. If we're talking winning playoff games, you're not going anywhere with Jacoby Myers as your number one guy. And I love Jacoby Myers. He's a really, really fantastic player as maybe a number two guy. But, like Nelson Aguilar is kind of underwhelmed and his cap hit is over 4 times more than Jacoby Myers is right now. And then, Kendrick Bourne, obviously, he's probably your only explosive guy. Like I said earlier, he's in Matt Patricia's doghouse.
My brother is a Patriots fan. I don't want to explain how that happened. And his biggest complaint is the inability of the Patriots to be able to draft and develop the wide receiver position. He just shakes his head. He's been shaking his head for like 25 years and said simply, can we do whatever the Steelers are doing to develop the wide receiver position? Because clearly we cannot do it. He marvels at the way that the Steelers can develop the position. You were talking about Mac Jones and Neil was talking about the offense in terms of what they might want to do philosophically. Is that more so because of Belichick or is it because of physical limitations of Mac Jones?
I think it's more because of Belichick wanting to run things that way. I mean, I know some people are going to disagree with me, but personally, I'm a believer in Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is a solid quarterback. Obviously he's not Tom Brady under center. That guy's long gone. But, Mac Jones proved it in Alabama. He showed that he can make some tough throws. And, he's proved it at times last year, making it to the Pro Bowl for his first year as a rookie, which is really impressive, getting the Patriots back to the playoffs. They need to let him throw a little bit, but obviously it's kind of hampered right now where you don't really have guys to throw the football to. I made the point, how Mac must have felt walking onto that field against the Miami Dolphins, and he's looking at his former teammate in Tua, who has Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill as his receivers, and Mac's looking over here, and he's like, man, I have Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Parker, and Jacoby Myers is my guy. So, I mean, you got to get the guy some help. And, I mean, yeah.
Parker, the guy they got rid of.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably because they have Jalen Waddle, and you saw in that game who Jalen Waddle is. That touchdown he scored was unreal. That kid he's something else.
He is, exactly. And then, and then Parker, he had an opportunity to make a play, but he wasn't able to make it. It was kind of nullified by Xavier Howard. But, yeah. They're struggling to develop receivers. That's kind of been a going theme in New England.
One last question on the offensive side of the ball before we flip it. There's been a lot made in this offseason about the coaches, Joe Judge, Matt Patricia, and this offensive approach. What's your thought in terms of how they've approached trying to build their offense and what they're doing with the coaching staff and this whole kind of weird thing about we don't really have a coordinator and we sort of do, and what's the impact of that on this offense?
I think it's a huge impact. And I've been saying Bill Belichick, in my opinion, he has too many roles. I mean, the guy has more roles than Eddie Murphy and the Nutty Professor. I mean, he's the de facto offensive coordinator, he's the de facto defensive coordinator, he's also the general manager, and he's also the head coach. There's so much going on. I would have loved to actually see New England bring in an offensive coordinator to help out with the system. But Belichick, he's one of those guys that likes his in-house guys. So he's going to bump Matt Patricia to that position. And I get it. Like, Matt Patricia has had some experience coaching offense in some ways, but man, it's a little different when you're standing on the sideline supposedly calling the plays, and it didn't look too good on Sunday. So yeah, I was not a big fan of that approach.
Let's flip it to the other side of the ball. This Steeler offense against the Patriots defense. I thought the Patriots defense played fairly solid against Miami. A couple of plays here and there. The fantastic play off the slant to score. What do you think this game looks like on that side of the ball? The Steelers offense going up against the Patriots defense.
Patriots defense actually deserves a lot of credit. You know, they had that one blown play against with Jalen Waddle. I mean, the guy's just a flash, and he just kind of speeds through the two defenders, but that's obviously a blown play on the Patriots end. But up until that point, you know, they hadn't yielded a touchdown. You know, they would not have yielded a touchdown in that game. And, you know, that defensive front is very ferocious with Matt Judon, Christian Barmore up front, Dietrich Wise. Those guys can get after the quarterback. And I think that they're going to cause some problems for the Steelers. Now, the question is can they come away with some takeaways? Can they turn this into a turnover affair? If they can do that, if they can make Mitch Trubisky turn back into Chicago Mitch, then we might have a game here. And you can flip the field and maybe give Nick Folk some field goals to maybe win the game on.
So just so we're clear, can Bill Belichick find a way to make Mitch Trubisky look bad in a game? That's the point that we're at for this game. Didn't I pick the Steelers to win? I'm changing that now, Lance. I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't considered that angle, but yeah, that's what's going to happen. Not going to be pretty.
Really quickly, point out a matchup on both sides of the ball that you're highlighting in this game. Let's start on the Steelers offensive side against the Patriots defense. Is there a matchup on that side? And flipping it, is there a matchup on the offensive side that you're really looking at and highlighting in this ball game?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm basically looking at Mitch Trubisky and the entire defensive front. I know that's not a one-on-one matchup per se, but you know, I'm looking to see if they can get home, if they can cause some turnovers, if they can cause some havoc in that backfield. And I think that's going to be the key of the game. The Patriots can't create turnovers. They're probably going to be in trouble. And on the other side, flipping it, I'm really looking at Trent Brown versus an Alex Highsmith, because we're going to see a lot of that. And Trent Brown, he had a rough game against the Miami Dolphins, particularly the strip sack fumble that led to points with Melvin Ingram scooping it up and high stepping it into the end zone. You know, you can't do that in this game. Like he's gonna have to step up. And there were some plays as well where it just seems like it was just kind of a lack of hustle as well too. I mean, obviously that blown up play, but the lack of hustle as well. And going back to what I was saying about the play action passes, you know, if you want some of these plays to work, you know, the guy has to step up. I'll tell you right now, like if Mac Jones turns his back on the Steelers defense and the offensive line protection isn't good, he's going to get crushed. I saw a trailer for the movie Halloween Ends. Mac Jones will end if they do not do a better job of blocking in this game.
Yeah, both quarterbacks might die in this game. It is possible. I'm going to say this. I'll predict it now. I think the Steelers are going to turn the ball over on one of their first two possessions of this game. I think that's going to swing it. I think that's exactly what Belichick is telling them right now. We will win if we can get up early, take the ball away, and lean on them, because this team cannot move the ball. They're already injured, and they lost their best defensive player. We might have trouble scoring, but if we take the ball away on defense, we're going to be able to win this game. We just have to hold on to our own possession, maybe get another one, and we're going to have to find a chunk play somewhere in this game. And I don't know how many there's going to be for either team here.
Thanks for the segue, Neil. So with that being said, let's toss it to you, Jordy. What's your prediction for this game?
Oh my goodness. So I'm getting put on the spot here. I'm actually, at first I was leaning Steelers. I really was, but defensively, I feel like the Patriots are going to be able to win this game. I think they're going to be able to create some turnovers. And this is not just me being a homer, because I could have seen this team going 0-4 in the first 4 games. But yeah, I believe turnovers are going to be the factor. I think it's going to be an incredibly ugly game, and the defense is going to win the game, and on the leg of Nick Folk.
Neil?
I went into this, and I'll stick with it for the sake of continuity. For many of the same reasons, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm not sure either team is going to be able to find a whole lot of explosion. With that, though, the Steelers playing in their home opener, they've got an excellent kicker in that stadium already. I think they can get the 16 points that they got last week in regulation this time. I think the Steelers are going to win it late 16-13.
You know what? I hate to agree with Neil, but I picked the Steelers to start the season 4-0, and Neil laughed at me. But I think they find a way against a offense that's not particularly explosive. It becomes a field goal fest, and I can see the Steelers winning a very tight game, 16-13 by the same score as Neil, or 17-13, somewhere around there. I think both offenses score one touchdown and they kick a bunch of field goals, and the Steelers come out of here with a very ugly 17-13 win. And much of Steeler Nation is complaining that they're 2-0 and the games don't look nice, particularly pretty, and whatever. We know how it works.
It's a race to 9. That's what they need.
Hey, 4-0 is a hell of a prediction right there.
Well, I put a little of my Homer hat. I got my new crucial catch, hat. So, it has a lot of colors in it. So I was feeling particularly happy when I made that prediction. But Jordy, before we let you go, why don't you tease something that you have going on PatriotsWire.com?
Yes, I'm about to be. So obviously we're getting ready for the Steelers, and here today, or it probably will be released tomorrow. I'll have a fun piece coming up on Mr. Belichick that might give me a little hate from Patriot Nation. Obviously, we're in mourning right now. We're in mourning right now. I was saying the other day, hopefully we don't turn into the Bills Mafia. We might have the Patriots Mafia powerbombing each other through fiery tables at this point, because we're kind of in struggle land right now. So, yeah, be on the lookout for that in the morning.
Thank you, Jordy, for hopping on the program. Hey, if you ever want to do it again, reach out to me and we can always do it again. Thank you. We're fantastic.
Thank you so much for
Good
having
stuff,
me, guys.
Jordy. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
So there you have it. We are both picking the Steelers, which means they probably will lose. I mean, it's impossible for both of us to pick the Steelers if they actually win.
I just feel terrible about that pick now. I don't like any part of that. It's like, you know what? The thing that's getting me, Lance? It's the fact that last week was so eerily similar to week 1 last season. The home opener is going to be a dud, like it was against the Raiders last year. And oddly enough, Watt went down early in that Raiders game and didn't come back. And you don't have Watt for this one at all. There's no way in the world Belichick can't figure out a way to basically shut this offense out. There's just, I don't see how he can't do that. They're not going to score. The game's always about who scores the most points, but it's going to be situational for both of them. I don't have confidence in the Steelers in the situation downs. I don't have confidence in them third and short and mid. Belichick finds ways to win those downs more often than not, and he can eke out a win over 4 quarters without scoring a lot of points. They're able to take the ball away. They're able to prevent conversions in critical situations. I just don't think the Steelers can do that.
It's funny. Steelers Freak is the best. And he writes, I always have to take a shower after a Steelers game. I feel so dirty. And I suspect that he's going to feel filthy like Pigpen after this particular game. I just see this being a very ugly affair. Steelers grind it out and figure out some way to win. And they're literally probably one of the worst 2-0 teams in NFL history. I think they somehow figure out a way to get it done. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here. And thank you guys for hopping in. Before we leave, make sure you tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Hit that like button. It helps with the algorithm. Spread the word on the show. Go Steelers. We're both predicting a 2-0 start. We'll break it down for you after the game on Sunday. Go Steelers. Tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.